Yo ho ho. All right. Welcome back to Analyze Potential Value and Recommended Solutions. This is the end of chapter 7, by the way, which literally means that we're almost done with the whole book. We still have chapter 8, which is evaluating solution evaluation, and chapter 9, which is basically underlying competencies. Congrats on making it this far. I am super proud of you. You have and always have, you are and always have been a business analyst, just to let you know. The nerd among nerds. So, analyze potential value and recommended solution. Now that we've finished with the whole specifying and modeling requirements to verifying, validating them, and then defining the architecture behind them and the design options that we could use, we're analyzing the potential value and recommend a solution. So what's the purpose? Purpose of analyze potential value and recommend solution is to estimate the potential value of each design option and to establish which one is most appropriate to meet the enterprise's requirements. You notice, right? We're never only doing one thing. We're always doing more than one thing, kind of like picking the best in between them. A description, analyze potential value and recommend solution describes how to estimate the model and potential value delivered by a set of requirements. Basically it. Design options are evaluated by comparing the values, the potential value of, you know what, let me read the whole thing. Requirements, designs, and design option. Potential value is analyzed many times over the course of the change. This analysis may be planned event or it may be triggered by a modification of the context scope of the change. Analysis potential value includes consideration that there is uncertainty in estimates. Value can be described in terms of finance, reputation, even impact on the marketplace, qualitative, quantitative. I'm glad I read this. Any change may include a mix of increases and decreases in value. Design options are evaluated by comparing the potential value of each option to the other options. Each option has a mix of advantages and disadvantages to consider, depending on the reason for the change. There may be no best option to recommend, and there may be a clear best choice in some cases. This means the best option may be to begin work against more than one design option. Perhaps to develop proofs of concepts and then blah, 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 measure the performance of each. I can't just go blah, blah, blah. I know that all of this is kind of like repeating what we've done before, but you do have to read it. Your mind has to check it. See, you're not the one thinking. What you're doing right now is out loud, or I'm doing right now, is out loud reading what are the things that is so important for these people to dive into that detail, knowing full well that the experience in itself can kind of like build you up. But again, this is the summary of experiences. So your mind's going to be like, of course, of course, of course, of course. But when the time comes to apply it, we do not have that chain of command. We do not have that flow. And so to continue. In other instances, all proposed designs may be rejected and more analysis may be needed, blah, of course. To tell me how I could fail. What are the inputs? The potential value basically that we could have can be used and benchmarked against which the value delivered, like if we actually are thinking of stuff. Design options need to be evaluated and compared. But this is the basically diagram. The guidelines and tools are business objectives, current state description, future state description, risk analysis and results, and solution scope. By doing that, our output is the solution itself, recommended solution basically. And the tasks that receive this are defined strategy, change strategy. So what are the elements? Are the expected benefits? Like what could we expect? Whether it's the value induced that can include the benefits, reduce this compliance with business policies and regulations. It could spread across many basically like industries maybe, and then provides an improved user experience, any other positive outcome, blah, blah, blah. Benefits are determined based on the analysis of the benefit stakeholders desire. What basically you have to also the expected cost, timeline, effort, operating cost, purchase and prior implementation costs, maintenance costs, physical resources, information resources, and new resources. Expected costs for a design option consider the cumulative cost of the design components. Business analysts also consider opportunity cost. Oof, that's amazing. I love this. Because sometimes like you're missing out on something that has a different kind of value or is more value if you're actually trying to fix something that's already there. Opportunity costs are alternative results that might have been achieved if the resources, time, funds devoted to one design option had been allocated to another design option. Like sometimes you're trying to fix something to save like 20%. Using the same money / time, you could invest it in something else that could gain you a different segment of the market, right? it doesn't directly correlate with money, but maybe like in the future that kind of has more benefit. I don't know. And determined value, basically, the potential value of a solution is to a stakeholder is based on the benefits delivered. Oh, you kind of have to think of every stakeholder and what they benefit from it. Value can be positive if the benefits exceed the cost, or negative, costs exceed the benefits. Business analysts consider potential value from the points of view of stakeholders. Value to the enterprise is almost always more heavily weighed than value of an individual stakeholder groups. There might be increases in value in one set of stakeholders and decreases in value for another set, but overall positive increase in value for the enterprise as a whole justifies proceeding with the change. So potential values is an uncertain value, right? We have to kind of keep that in mind. There are always events and conditions that could increase or decrease the value that may occur. All of these kind of have to be within the proposition. You have to be smart enough to kind of write them down, or at the very least, like smart enough to be like, no, this could exist. This could exist. When benefits are described as intangible and costs expressed as tangible, it may be difficult for decision makers to compare their options. Business analysts define a complete estimate of the purpose-driven and monetary effects of the proposed change by considering the tangible and intangible costs along the tangible and intangible benefits. I love that they took the time to write that, but ultimately, it's just kind of like everything needs to be considered. And when you look at everything that's in front of you and you go like, aha, now that I've considered everything, aha, consider it again, because there's something that's probably missing, and you can consider that. Number 4, assessing design options and recommending a solution. Each design option is assessed based on the potential value, basically, and when it comes to costs and efforts and understood. Just going to read it, man. Each design option is assessed based on the potential value it's expected to deliver. At any point in analyzing the design options, it may become necessary to evaluate the initial allocation of design elements between components. The reason for evaluations include better understanding for the cost to implement each component to determine which allocations have best cost to benefit ratio. We're basically looking at every element and saying, okay, does this work? Would this work better? That's it. As costs and efforts are understood for each solution component, business analysts assess each design option to ensure that it represents the most effective trade-offs, and there are several factors to take into consideration. Available resources versus the resource that there may be limitations regarding the amount of requirements that can be implemented based on the allocated resources. In some instances, I can't build a boat when I don't have the steel for it, and I don't have money to actually buy the steel. So maybe I could buy it. I could build a raft or something with it, right? If my goal is to cross the river, a good solution might be a bridge, but a simpler solution might be a small boat or like a swing or something. Why the fuck not? Constraints on the solution, regulatory requirements, and whatever legalities or business decisions that may require certain requirements. Or maybe just kind of like operational logistical concerns, because sometimes making a decision, we talked about this, I think, in chapter 4 or 5, when we were discussing maybe if you want to change something within one side of the business, it might affect the other side. So all of these, we have to kind of like think about them. And dependencies between requirements. Some capabilities may and of themselves provide limited value to the organization, but need to be delivered in order to support high value requirements. So other considerations may include relationships with proposed vendors, dependencies on other initiatives, corporate culture, and sufficient cash flow for investment. Business analysts recommend the option of options deemed to be the most valuable solution to address the needs. I wonder if we ask these questions beforehand, or we figure them out because we wouldn't want people to give us promises that don't work. I would always go and figure them out, but that means more work for me. So it's easier to ask a question and hope they're saying the truth, but that's not how it works in the real world, because everyone is delusional in what they believe in, because belief is based on ignorance. So they believe they're telling you what's the truth, but the reality is not truthful. Anyways, what are the guidelines and tools, business objectives, the current state description, future state description, risk analysis results, and the solution scope? Makes sense, because we're finalizing the potential basically value and the recommended solution. So you need the objectives, you need the current state, you need the future state, you need the risk analysis results that we actually spend time in order to understand the difference between the present state, the current state, and the future state, and the scope of the solution. Like, where do we stop ourselves? We're solving world hunger, if anything. Anyways, techniques, acceptance and evaluation criteria used to express requirements in the form of acceptance criteria to make them most useful when assessing proposed solutions. Oh, sorry, my bad. I'm just reading techniques again. What are the techniques, acceptance and evaluation criteria? What are the things we accept? Backlog management, brainstorming, business cases, business model canvas, decision analysis, estimation, financial analysis, focus groups, interviews, metrics, key performance indicators, risk analysis and management, survey or questionnaire, SWOT analysis, workshop, customers. Who are the stakeholders? The customers, domain subject matters, end user, implementation subject matter, project matter, regulator, sponsor, technically everything, right? Anyone. And what you end up getting is a solution recommendation. Stay with me here. I'm going to check something when verifying the requirements. So here we're at verifying requirements. I'm just going to check all stakeholders for basically like the chapter 7.2 basically. Business analyst in conjunction with the domain implementation subject matter experts has the primary responsibility of determining that this task has been completed. Other stakeholders may discover implement. So basically, I feel like the difference between all stakeholders and most of them is kind of like the same. But so with this one, analyzing potential value, it's always all the stakeholders. But ultimately, because we're working on the solution, like the recommended solution, like it's the customer and the end user. The customer here is the actual client, right? The end user is going to basically be using it. And management, regulatory, and sponsors, the people who gave us to go ahead and implementation in this subject matters, whether they're the domain ones and the implementation ones. They're the ones probably who will not give us biased feedback because they're going to be using it. Whilst in other cases, when they say all stakeholders, that means just keep asking people questions until you figure out what's going on. That's it, man. 7.6. We are done with chapter 7. And next chapter is basically solution evaluation. Look at you guys. Super proud of you.